What is the standard of forgiveness? The standard of forgiveness. Have you ever thought about this? When we talk about forgiveness and someone has done something to us that needs to be forgiven, how do we process that? How do we decide whether or not we're willing to forgive them, to release them, which really is what forgiveness is about? What is the standard? This is the Mighty Oaks Daily Devotional. My name is Jeremy Stalnecker. And when I think about a standard, for some reason, I always think about a bar. And that is the standard. And if I'm doing anything in my life and that's the standard, I need to measure up to that bar, whatever that is, in whatever venue in life I find myself in. When we talk about forgiveness, this is such a personal thing. We've been hurt. Someone said something unkind or done something unkind, and we can be even severely, deeply wounded by what others have done to us, and so many have. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, why should I forgive them? Or what is the standard? When has someone crossed a line that I can no longer forgive them, or rather, I should no longer forgive them, or I have no obligation to forgive them? Remember, and we've talked about this, if you haven't heard previous devotionals talking about forgiveness, I've talked about this in the past, but forgiveness really it's a releasing. Forgiveness is not saying it's okay what they did. Forgiveness is not somehow condoning what was done. It's not even saying I don't feel bad about it anymore. Forgiveness is opening a hand and saying you're no longer responsible or accountable to me. Hopefully, forgiveness can lead to reconciliation. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But for my part, as the one who's been hurt, when I talk about offering forgiveness, I'm opening a hand. I'm saying, look, you're not responsible to me anymore. That releases them to God to be responsible there. It gives them the opportunity to seek forgiveness, to ask for forgiveness, to work to reconcile a relationship if that can be done. But it also frees me. I'm no longer bound to them or that situation anymore. I'm moving forward. I've given forgiveness. I've offered forgiveness. I've forgiven. But how far do we go with that? Jesus, our Savior, lived a perfect and sinless life. He's God. He came to earth for one very specific reason, to seek and save that which was lost. That's what he tells us, and he told to his disciples when they asked him, why are you here? Jesus came knowing that eventually he would have to pay the price for the sins of mankind. A very large discussion that we won't get into today, but he did that by dying on the cross in our place. Someone had to pay the price for that sin. He took the sin of the world and all who have ever lived in it or ever will upon himself, and he paid the price for that sin. Jesus died on the cross. He was murdered at the hands of his creation. I mean, think about that. Created everything, murdered at the hands of his creation. He was mocked, he was beaten, and as he hung on the cross, dying, naked, exposed for the world to see, the Bible tells us this in the book of Luke, chapter 23, and verse 34. Then said Jesus, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they parted his raiment and cast lots. As Jesus hung on the cross, the soldiers who had been administering this crucifixion, the ones who actually put the nails into his hands and the nails into his feet and dropped that cross into the ground, the soldiers, I would imagine, who would eventually put a spear in his side. We know that happened. I imagine this is one of the soldiers here. They had Jesus's robe and they were casting lots. They were gambling over who would get his robe. And as the creator of everything was being murdered by his creation, mocked by those that he had given life to, his first thought was not judgment. It wasn't condemnation. It was, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Father, release them. Now we know that as it relates to salvation, we must put our faith and confidence, our hope in Jesus for the forgiveness of our sin, for the salvation of our soul. But what Jesus was doing was he was taking that bar, that standard, and setting it very, very high. What's the standard of forgiveness? The standard of forgiveness apparently is the creator of the universe being willing to forgive those who murdered him in his physical body. So I ask the question, what is it that someone's done to you that's worse than that? Forgiveness isn't saying that sin is okay. It's not forgetting, it's not neglecting, it's not pretending. It's simply releasing. Releasing the other person to the accountability of a holy God and releasing yourself to a future that is able to move forward without being bound to what someone else has done to you in the past. Who's the standard of forgiveness? The standard is always Jesus. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow for another Mighty Oaks Daily Devotional. For more information about the Mighty Oaks Foundation and the work that we do for veterans, active duty service members, and first responders, please visit mightyoaksprograms.org.